The following episode of The Cards Court was recorded on Sunday, November 12th. The Cards Court is a presentation of SportsLink Digital Radio, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie. Chirp, chirp, and go Cards.
Good afternoon and welcome to this week's episode of The Cards Court, the number one weekly Ball State basketball show in the world. I'm your host, Griffin Leonard. Joining me as my co-host this week is Dane Massey, and joining us later on the show will be Ball State women's Learfield voice, Dom Liacani. With that, the court is now in session. Dane, thanks for joining me this week. How have you been doing?
I've been doing all right, Griff. You know, it's been an interesting week, especially men's and women's basketball teams are undefeated this season. It's a good time to be a Cardinals fan.
Yeah, let's talk about Ball State basketball. A very good week and a weekend indeed. Men's basketball started things off against Goshen with the big win on Tuesday, and then it really got interesting on Saturday. The MAC SBC Challenge was going for both the men's and the women's teams. Men's at home versus Old Dominion. Huge crowd, huge result, huge win. They got it done 73-68. We'll talk about that one a little later on. But for the women's team, they went and traveled all the way down to Alabama, played the Troy Trojans, and they looked pretty comfortable for the majority of that game, but got the job done in the end. They won 86-71. Both teams stay undefeated, and both teams look really, really good, Dane.
Yeah, definitely. And this Ball State team, we knew that there were going to be questions that they needed to answer, especially with the departure of Anna Clefane and Telma Stogstar. The question that was going to be, who was going to step up for this team? And there hasn't really been one specific player to step up. It's been an entirely group effort for this team. Allie Becky, you expect to be their top scorer, the facilitator, going off for 20 points every night. She has not done that. She hasn't even been the leading scorer for these first two games for the Cardinals, which is very interesting to see. And it just shows you that this culture and just the complexity of this team going forward is just such a special group, especially with them adding the reigning MAC Defensive Player of the Year, Nyla Hampton, that fills a big hole in terms of who is going to be that defensive presence. Nyla Hampton surely fills that defensive presence for the Cardinals, and it's just been an all-around amazing group effort for these first two games.
Yeah, talking about Allie Becky, she only put up 4 points against Troy, but she dished out 7 assists. Looking at somebody who was on the scoring end, Maddie Bischoff, 22 points off of 7 for 13 shooting, including 6 for 9 from behind the arc. How about that?
And that's impressive because Allie Becky only having 4 points, it's not something that, people look at that and they say, oh, she just had a terrible game, but the assists kind of make up for that. And I think this is what Coach Sally really wanted to do. She wanted to sort of use Allie Becky sort of a decoy and get other players involved. And I think that's what the special thing with Coach Sally is, just the fact that he's known to kind of make it a group play game instead of just having one player go off for 30 points every night. And that's what makes this group so special. It's just the overall group play of this. It's not there's not an I in team, and he really uses that to his advantage. And just Allie Becky having only 4 points, but Madeline Bischoff having 22, and then having Nyla Hampton have 12. It just proved my point even further that this team is just a special group, and they're not really willing to rely on one player.
And then let's talk briefly about the more traditional bigs. Alex Richard and Marie Kiefer getting the start once again, but neither one of them really doing a whole lot on the offensive side. Instead, it was Annie Rausch called upon, and she delivered 7 for 12, 17 points in 34 minutes of 40 potential off the bench. Rausch really stepped up. Do you think that playing time will start to increase as the season goes on?
Well, I kind of like that two-player rotation with Rausch and Richard, because those two females are just so physical down low. I mean, we saw it against Tennessee Tech the first game. I mean, you saw the physicality of how they are down low, and then it continues to be against Troy, where they're just so physical down low in terms of getting rebounds, in terms of just scoring down low. This time, one of them was more physical than the other. The first game, we saw Alex Richard get more physical. This time, we saw Annie Rauch go up and get boards. It's all I like the two-player rotation because one of them's going to bring the physicality, while the other's just kind of going to be kind of the decoy and kind of just carry on the momentum going forward. So, in terms of who steps up and gets more minutes, I can't really answer that yet. We'll see as the season goes on yet, but when you have two players that have really good days, especially with Alex Richer having a 20-point game, and then you have Andy Roush off the bench having a 17-point game, it's really hard to tell about who's going to get more minutes, especially with 2 games into the season. So I guess we'll figure out later down the road as to who gets that starting center position.
Well, there's some questions for Coach Brady Sallee to answer, and well, I wish we could ask him those today. He's not going to be able to join us, but we do have the women's basketball voice, Dom Liacani. We're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll talk to him about Northwoods League and his job working with the team, what he's seen, what he's liked, and a look ahead to the next couple of women's games. This team's on fire. You don't want to miss it. We'll be right back here on the Cards Court on SportsLink Digital Radio, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Hi, I'm Chris Taylor, Senior Director of Digital Sports Production and Ball State SportsLink, the nation's first 4-year academic digital sports production program. It's the intersection of sports and storytelling, where we're training the next generation of digital content producers. It's truly unique because a lot of schools have sports broadcasting and sports journalism, and while we have elements of both of those, our focus is on sports media production and the behind-the-scenes work. And I think that's what separates us at Ball State, because a lot of schools will teach students to learn production or live event streaming, but we're teaching storytelling. And that is producing long-form, layered feature stories where we can humanize our student athletes and our coaches and tell the story as to why they're playing their sport at Ball State. Anyone can produce or edit things that are flashy and look good, but can you tell a story? And at Ball State, I think we really teach that, and the success is evident.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. I am your host, Griffin Leonard, alongside Dane Massey this week. And now we'd like to bring in our guest, not only one of my good friends and a SportsLink member, but one of the new voices of the Ball State women's basketball team on Learfield, Mr. Dom Liacani. Dom, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me, Griff. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, of course. And now, I mean, not everybody listening is gonna know quite who you are. So just give us a little bit like about you and how you got started doing commentary.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, just like you, Griff and Dane. I'm a junior, third year in SportsLink. I've been interested in doing play-by-play announcing since I was in middle school. Really, I started actually with basketball, doing my middle school's games on a little iPad where I'd have one of my fellow media personnel, I guess, if you want to even call it, just one of my friends, because we didn't have a media department in middle school, but he would literally just rotate the iPad back and forth, and I'd plug in like my gaming headset into the headphone jack, and I do commentary for my middle school's basketball team, and then I started doing it more in high school and did a variety of sports there, anything from baseball to swim and dive even, and now here we are in SportsLink, and I couldn't be more blessed and happy to be in the position I am, especially with SportsLink being such an elite program.
Yeah, definitely, Dom. And I mean, you've evolved as a play-by-play announcer. You even went to the Northwoods League. Can you kind of describe what that experience was like for you and how it helped you kind of evolve you as a play-by-play announcer?
Yeah, absolutely. Before even the Northwoods League, too, I'll give a shout-out to my guys in the Prospect League. I work for the Illinois Valley Pistol Shrimp. If we don't know what the types of leagues we're talking about, they're summer collegiate baseball leagues. So I started in the Prospect League for 5 straight years with the Illinois Valley Pistol Shrimp, their inaugural year in 2019 when they were the DuPage Pistol Shrimp, about 10 minutes away from my house. And then they moved down to the Illinois Valley. I stuck with them. I did some on-field entertainment stuff my first 2 years, and then my last year at the Pistol Shrimp, I started going on the road doing radio baseball games for them. And then recently this summer, I moved on to the Northwoods League with the Bismarck Larks. I was the TV voice there, also went on the road, did radio, did some content stuff. So, yeah, that was an incredible experience to be able to do that and get the reps I have. So, I mean, again, but it all comes back to just getting the opportunities here. I think at Ball State and SportsLink and here I've been able to evolve, like you mentioned, Dane, just being able to get those opportunities onto an actual summer internship has been awesome.
Going from prospect to Northwoods League, what's the jump there, like with the travel, with the experience, and then how does that mold you and help you to really experience what the broadcasting world's like?
Absolutely. And that's a great question, too, because a lot of people don't realize that there is a significant difference, not in, I wouldn't say talent or production levels. I'd say it's more of a pro style kind of thing and more of the number of games that you do, right? The amount of reps. So the Prospect League, there's only 60 games in a season, 30 home, 30 road. In the Northwoods League, not only are you doing more games, but it's more like an actual MLB season, because in the Prospect League, you don't have 2 or 3 game series against certain teams, right? It's more spontaneous. It's almost like the NHL, NBA season where you're playing one team and then going to the next. Maybe you have a day off or two. In the Northwoods League, you really don't have that. You only have maybe 12 days off in a span of a 72-game season, which can be a grind, and it was a grind for me, especially this past summer being my first summer in the Northwoods League. But it was great. It helped me evolve. Not only was I able to do television reps, but I was also able to do radio reps. And there, for people that don't know, the styles of commentary and don't understand maybe the amount of detail that you have to put into a broadcast, there is a significant difference between doing a TV style broadcast and a radio broadcast. So just doing that, obviously just the quantity of games, me only doing the radio games, which is only 30 games with the Pistol Shrimp, and then doing basically all 72 games for the Larks. It was pretty crazy, and the amount of prep and how meticulous I had to be with stuff. Because if you know me, I think sometimes I go into too much detail, but no, it really helped me to time manage, budget what really was important, and I'll be forever grateful for that experience.
Well, and you were on ESPNU as well this summer, weren't you?
I was, yeah. I did. I got the opportunity, and that's another thing I'll say. I was very lucky too, and thankful for the Northwoods League to give me that platform, because it was cool. They did their first ever ESPNU style games. The Northwoods League had been broadcasting for ESPN Plus. They had that partnership. I think it started in 2022, and then they kind of expanded it more this year. So they also split the All-Star game up by league, or rather divisions in the league, rather than just the entire league. So there was a Great Plains division, which is the division the Larks were in, and then there's the Great Lakes. And Bismarck got the All-Star game this year, which I was very lucky to be selected to do field reporting for that game. So I got to work with the voice of the Chicago Blackhawks, Chris Fosters, and growing up a Blackhawks fan, it was really cool to work with him and get to know him, and then also getting to know Dan Evans, a former general manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers in the early 2000s. He was the color commentator for that game. So it was incredible. And it's crazy to think that as an undergraduate student, I got an opportunity to be on ESPNU. Again, I couldn't be more blessed to be put in that position, because it was kind of just a timing and a luck thing, I want to say. But also, I feel like when I got into that moment, I was like, wow, like, this is surreal. And I feel like people are telling me, oh, the hard work, like, you earned it. And but, to be an undergraduate doing that, it was nuts.
Well, it sounds like the summer was pretty eventful for you, and we're going to take a quick break here on the Cards Court. When we get back, we'll talk to you about what you're doing now and all that good stuff, but you're watching the Cards Court right here on the SportsLink Digital Radio Network, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Victory Honda of Muncie. We're not just another car dealership, and here's why. We stand behind every car we sell and are dedicated to helping our customers save time and money. All our pre-owned cars undergo a rigorous 182-point inspection and come with a 90-day warranty to ensure that you're getting a Victory quality vehicle. Plus, you'll get 2 years of complimentary oil changes and tire rotations. We're part of a top 15 dealership group and have an enormous selection of vehicles with access to inventory at over 45 locations. You always get more for your trade and the best possible rates with us. We have an excellent relationship with hundreds of lenders. Our exclusive Car Doc maintenance and membership program will help you save hundreds of dollars in the process of maintaining your vehicle. Lastly, our state-of-the-art body shop and certified technicians perform high-quality repairs and paintwork on most vehicle makes and models. Victory Honda of Muncie. We're not just another car dealership.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. I'm Griffin Leonard alongside Dane Massey, and our guest this week is Dom Liacati. Dom, you just accepted a new role. Can you tell us about that role, how you got it, and what it's meant to you to be involved?
Yeah, absolutely. Being one of two new voices for the Ball State women's basketball team on Learfield this year, incredible opportunity. I want to thank Ball State Athletics, Mick Tidrow, the voice of the Cardinals, for giving me the opportunity. It kind of just sprung up one day when I was helping out doing sideline for one of the women's volleyball matches in, I want to say, very late August. It was about that first or second week of school during the Ball State Invitational, and I was doing sideline, and Mick approached me before the second match I did and asked me if I'd be interested in being one of a few voices to call games on the Voice of Muncie, or the Talk of Muncie, I should say, excuse me, to do that on Learfield as well. And I said absolutely, and I knew I couldn't turn down the opportunity, especially with how good this team is, with how much attention this team is going to get as well, and much earned attention, because Brady Sally and company has put together a squad that I think has a very, very good shot at doing something special this year. And yeah, I mean, that's really how the opportunity came, and I'm forever grateful that I get this chance.
Yeah, Dom, and if you were to sum up this women's basketball season in a couple of words so far, what would you say?
One word, I'd say electric. Right now, this team just looks so dominant. It's like they haven't skipped a beat from last year, right? I mean, obviously, you lose two big pieces in Anna Clefane, Telma DeSaugusdaughter. You're a leading scorer, you're a leading three-point getter. Really, that beyond the arc presence in Telma, all-time leading three-point scorer in history, right? That's tough. That's tough to replace. But when you add the MAC Defensive Player of the Year in Nyla Hampton, when you bring back, three of your big scorers from last year too, and you're expecting, obviously, Maddie Bischoff take a big step up in scoring. Allie Becky's continuing to do her thing, dishing the ball, creating turnovers as well, and then Marie Kiefer down low, just that presence, right? It's nuts to think how much talent that this team still retained, even though you're saying, hey, wait, I mean, you're losing your top two scorers, right? It's weird to think that this team can be even better than what it was last year, and I genuinely think that this team, like I mentioned, has a shot at doing something very, very special.
And not only that, but just the amount of role players that this team has. I mean, just coming off the bench, Anna Barreto, Hannah Mule, just how much depth this team has. I mean, what does that depth really mean for this team?
I mean, the number in itself, 45 points, I believe, off the bench. Yeah, 45 points off the bench against Troy. It is incredible. The amount of depth that this team has is great. And Ana Bajito going to take a huge step up this year. Brady Sally and company say we can expect her to get a ton more minutes. Anna Mule as well. Expect her to take a big leap, especially from her freshman year, where she maybe didn't get as many minutes as we would think, to where now she's going to see a significant amount of more playing time. And just the role players, like you mentioned, right? I mean, there's so many people that can do so many things on this team. No one's selfish. I mean, you could look at Allie Becky and say, oh, she could be a prolific scorer. But what did she do last year? She led the Mid-American Conference in assists. She was 16th nationally. And then Nyla Hampton obviously doing her thing, being unselfish with her defense. I mean, that's a team statistic that I think that's very overlooked. And obviously when you're looking at a MAC Defensive Player of the Year, the amount of steals and turnovers that she generates by herself with the amount of pressure she puts as well, that doesn't go on the score sheet all the time. And I think with the amount of different pieces that are on this team and how deep this team is, like I said, it could be a very special year.
Yeah, we've talked about Troy. Looking ahead, a big matchup coming up here against Northern Iowa, Chicago State as well. But let's focus on the UNI game for obvious reasons.
Overlooking Chicago State here. Wow.
But looking ahead at UNI, a big matchup there. What are you expecting, and who do you need from the Cardinals to step up?
Well, I'm expecting a dogfight, because this team can also shoot the three ball very well. They also have a very good down low presence, and Grace Buffelli. She is coming into this season, the MVC preseason player of the year, first team all MVC as well. And I think that there's going to be a dogfight down low between her, Kiefer, Richard, and Roush. And then you also got to look at Maya McDermott for Northern Iowa as well. Preseason first team all MVC, was the most improved player from last year's conference. I mean, both players started all 33 games for them last year. And they bring unique weapons, right? McDermott's going to have the 3-ball, but she's also going to be the facilitator like Allie Becky. She's very similar to Allie in that respect, and I think that's something to look out for, because that's going to be an interesting matchup. And then also you got to ask the question too, is who's Nyla Hampton going to guard? Because again, there's so many different pieces. I mean, Emerson Green, you look at their 3-point stud, and Kaba Lauby as well beyond the arc. So there's a lot of different options for Brady Sally to run with who he wants to put Nyla Hampton on. But I think the big weapons that you need to watch out for on UNI are number 0 and number 42 in McDermott and Buffelli. So for the Cards, I think they just need to do what they've been doing, right? It's consistent scoring. It's getting points in the paint. It's dishing the ball. It's also creating the turnovers. Like, Ball State, by far right now, one of the best defensive teams, not only in the Mid-American Conference, probably the premier defensive team in the Mid-American Conference right now, but also one of the premier defensive teams in the country. And applying that pressure, not putting their foot off the gas at all, especially from the start, because we know Brady Sally is gonna press early, and that's not a bad thing, because you want to put pressure on your opponents to get the ball across the timeline and take some valuable seconds off the shot clock.
Yeah, we gotta start wrapping things up here, but I did want to ask, like, it's no secret that the attendance is better, the fan engagement is better on the men's side. What would you say to the Ball State faithful to try to promote this team and to get more people in that arena? Because I've been to the women's games so far, and they are so much fun. This team is so good, but hardly anybody's there to see it besides about 4,000 screaming elementary school kids.
Right, and obviously that's field trip day, so we'll really see what the turnout's like for this UNI game upcoming Saturday. But to the fans, I'd say this is a team you're not going to want to miss, because I've said the word special about 5 or 6 times now in this episode. But this team really has a chance to do something special. 15-1 last year in Worthen Arena alone. Over 150 wins all time in Worthen Arena, a winning percentage over 600, or 60%, I should say, but 600. Like, this team is fun. They bring energy. You know Brady Sally's bunch is going to be well conditioned. I mean, that's one of his focal points that he mentions in his key values. I mean, he wants to make sure that his team is not gassed when they go to the fourth quarter, and it's been very evident from the energy that they bring. I mean, there's a cast of characters on this team too, right? Different personalities, different styles of play, but also, they can shoot the 3-ball. They can get it down low. I'd say come out, because, I mean, this team is starting to get more and more of the attention it deserves, especially with a prime time game now. Later in the year, in the season, for Maction against Toledo. Like, you're not going to want to miss that. You're not going to want to miss being on prime time television either on CBS. So this team deserves it. There's a reason they finished second in the conference, but their potential, I think, and their ceiling of being second in the conference, I think, is much higher. I think they genuinely have a shot to finish at the top of not only the regular season, but winning the tournament.
Well, that will be all the time we will have. But thank you, Dom, for joining us on this episode of the Cards Court. It's been great talking to you, getting to know the women's basketball team a little more. Just a reminder to Cardinals fans that they will be at home here on Saturday against UNI. I'll be there. I hope you guys will be too. But we'll be right back on the Cards Court. Dane and I will talk men's hoops, and we'll send you on your way. You're watching the Cards Court on SL Digital Radio, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Left wing three, eyes, flies, and drops. Left wing three, wide open, drops it home.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. I'm your host, Griffin Leonard, alongside Dane Massey. Another big thank you to our guest host this week, Mr. Dom Liacani. But now it's just the two of us again, Dane, and looking at men's basketball now. A big win on Saturday against Old Dominion, getting the job done against the Monarchs, and they were really tried and tested in that game. What did you like from the guys, and just general thoughts?
I'm going to go out and say that this is probably the best blend of Ball State basketball I've seen in my 3 years here. I will go out and say that on a limb. I mean, just in terms of the overall blend of this group, in terms of everybody contributing and scoring and everybody doing their job, it's just really impressive to see. And they proved that against Old Dominion. I mean, you got to give it a hand for being a diamond in the rough and Jalen Anderson. I mean, the junior out of Loyola Marymount had 29 points and 9 rebounds, and he's currently one of the top MAC players in scoring right now through 2 games. And there was a lot of questions as to who was going to fill in those spots, especially with, guys like Peyton Sparks and Jalen Sellers leaving in the transfer portal. There was going to be a question as to how this team was going to respond to all that star talent leaving. And right now they sit at 2-0. That's all I can say. This team has looked so good through 2 games, and they definitely look like they can start competing in the MAC, especially with looking ahead at their schedule. I mean, I don't think this team, with the way they've looked in the last 2 games, there's a good chance that they could not lose a non-conference game. I can confidently say. I mean, they do have Minnesota on the schedule, and Minnesota can be a good challenge for them. But how they've looked against Old Dominion, they could pose a threat in terms of going into MAC play and have a really good record going into MAC play. So I'm very impressed with what I've seen out of this group so far. I love the blend. I love the physicality that this team brings. I mean, they're just, the minute that you get over that midpoint line, this Ball State defense is like all in your face. They are on you like gnats, and they're not going to stop until they get a turnover. I mean, we saw that against Old Dominion. I mean, there was 30 seconds left on the clock, and they forced a 5-second violation. I mean, this team, just in terms of their physicality, and it's just an impressive thing to see.
Yeah, I will say that I disagree with you in that we got a legit chance to go undefeated, and I think this team's got a long way to go. But I will say that they impressed me. They impressed me on Saturday. There were a lot of question marks for who was going to step up on this team, who was really going to contribute in the situations where we're being tested, being pushed against our will, and Jalen Anderson stepped up, Mickey Pearson stepped up, Bashir Jihad, once he was done dealing with foul trouble, he stepped up. A lot of guys on this team really stepped up in a big way on Saturday. The team came together. Do I think we're ready to really compete for the MAC title? Not quite yet, but that's not to say that we couldn't get there. Looking at the next couple of games, Oakland City at home, and then another in-state matchup. We go down to Evansville on Saturday. What's your expectations for those games?
And it's just going to keep the momentum. They got to use this momentum from this win against Old Dominion to keep moving forward. Now against Oakland City, they'll have a good chance of putting up 100 points in that game again, because it's another NAIA school, and Oakland City, looking at just the way that their statistics. I mean, they're in the bottom in their conference in basically every offensive statistic, in field goal percentage, 3-point percentage, and free throw percentage. I mean, it's not looking good for them. So there's a good chance that the Cardinals can probably put up 100 points on them, probably. And then looking forward to Evansville. I mean, this is a in-state battle, and this game is always a dogfight between Evansville and Ball State. I mean, this team last year, I got the chance to call this game last year on SL Digital, and it was pretty much a dogfight from start to finish. And I'm expecting that again. And this team, although you can look at their schedule and say that, yeah, they could win probably. You can probably win out, but this team's going to have a dogfight the whole way home. They're not going to look at this schedule and think, yeah, we're going to take the confidence. We're just going to kind of ease off the gas pedal a little bit. No, it's going to be full pedal for Michael Lewis and his team, and I'm excited to see what the future brings for this Cardinal squad.
Yeah, Evansville's going to be a really interesting matchup. I always like to look at the Ken Palm rankings when it's some of those teams that we aren't too accustomed to seeing and that don't get a whole lot of, publicity. But Ball State about 100 spots over Evansville in the Ken Palm rankings, season early. So who knows how much that could really tell us. But looking at that, you got to feel good about that game. But I will say I'm looking forward to this week. I think the Cards got a good chance to end the weekend 2-0 or 4-0 overall, and then they'd go into another homestand, which a couple of winnable home games. And yeah, you never know. Thanksgiving rather, we could be sitting at 6-0. And who knows where the team would be able to go from there. We're going to take another break. When we get back, we'll hit you with PBP's keys for the week and send you on your way. You're watching the Cards Court. You're on SL Digital Radio, presented by Victory Honda of Muncie.
Every road has its challenges. We say, bring them on. At Honda, we engineer each vehicle to outthink obstacles, to overcome difficult conditions. We engineer them for drivers who are determined to power through, just like you are. Rise to the challenge with the rugged performance of the Honda Passport, Pilot, and CR-V.
Welcome back to the Cards Court. I'm Griffin Leonard alongside Dane Massey. Before we send you on your way this week, let's take a look at PBP's keys with me. PBP. Taking a look, the first key for men's basketball, you got to limit the turnovers, Dane. I feel like that was something that the men's team, it almost came back to bite them. A lot of turnovers, some sloppy play.
Yeah, definitely. And, when you when you have 14 turnovers, it's not really a good thing on paper. But not only that, they got to cause their opponent to have more turnovers. They're one of the leaders in the MAC in causing turnovers right now. They got to keep up the defensive presence as well as keep the ball from being stripped from them and limit the turnovers as well.
Yeah, turnover battle, winning that is a big key for men's basketball this week. For the women's side, you got to unlock Marie Kiefer. She's been off to a slow start this season, pretty much non-existent on Saturday. Got to find a way to get her going on offense.
And I think that, we're talking about the blend that this Ball State women's team have. They definitely have a chance to do that. They are known to kind of get players involved. There are other key scorers involved. And right now, Marie Kiefer still hungry for a scoring day. I think this is kind of the game coming up against Chicago State where she can definitely have that scoring opportunity to get herself involved in this offense.
And then finally, our third key for both teams, and that's just to spread out the scoring. I think on Saturday, both the men's and the women's team had to rely on an individual performance to catapult them to the win, especially the men's team with Jalen Anderson. Not that that's a bad thing, but as the season rolls on, you definitely don't want to have to rely on one player to step up.
And both of these teams are kind of built on that. There's no I in team kind of mentality. They want to get everybody involved. And yeah, you can say Jalen Anderson had a great game. I mean, with him, he just went off. And then with Madeline Bischoff going off for the women's team, this is kind of that good opportunity to kind of reset and get everyone involved with the offense. It's a good thing to see against going into these games against a little bit less strong opponents.
Well, that was PBP's Keys. Taking a look at this week's schedule, 4 games are on tap for Ball State basketball. On Tuesday, both teams will be in action, with the women's team traveling to Chicago State and the men's team playing host to Oakland City right here in Muncie. The latter game can be caught on SL Digital Radio with myself and Landon Traylor on the call. Moving forward to Saturday, the men's team heads to Evansville for a matchup with the Aces, while the women's team comes home to face Northern Iowa. SL Digital will be the home for that contest, with Max Gilley joining myself for the commentary. Thank you for tuning into this week's episode of The Cards Court. Don't forget to tune in next week when we talk to Muncie Star Press writer and reporter Gus Martin about the teams and what he's doing for the local community. Until then, for Dom Liacani and Dane Massey, I'm Griffin Leonard signing off. The court is adjourned.